Excel CEO, Excel 2013, Chapter 7. So what are we going to learn in this chapter? This chapter, we're going to talk about text functions. We're going to do a whole lot of formula writing and use many text functions. You're going to recognize the uses for capabilities with text functions. You're going to select the correct arguments in a left function. You're going to use a mid function and identify how the left, right, and mid functions work. We're going to review the proper uses for the upper, lower, and proper functions. Then we're going to use a length function, the len function, to count the number of characters in a cell. You're going to learn how to remove extra spaces using the trim function and how to convert text numbers to values by using the value function. Finally, you're going to recognize the way that flash fill recognizes and displays patterns based on user inputs. So let's go ahead and get started. I just love writing formulas. Here listed on this page are several of the functions that I have found that are most useful in my job as an accountant, tax accountant, financial analyst, real estate appraiser, and all the other things that I've done in my career. Now, if you notice, there's a few in here that are marked by an asterisk that are new in 2010. Now, this course is 2013, but these are the new ones that are in 2010. These are the some if statements like the sum if and the count if and the average if. They're the ones that have the S on the end. Those are the new ones in Excel 20. Those are the new ones in Excel 2013. I'm not going to take the time to review all of these, so you can just go ahead and read some of them at your leisure, but these are the ones that I have been using the most. And these include text functions, logical functions, financial, math, lookup and reference, date and time, and statistical functions. Let's talk about text functions first. Text functions are basically things that you can do with text strings. So to illustrate some text functions, let's go ahead and open this first file. So I'm going to click open. We've got to go over to Chapter 7, so I'll click the Browse button here. Click on ExcelCEO, Excel 2013, Chapter 7. And there's only one file there called Employees, so let's go ahead and open up that one. And for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to save this as My Employees. There we go. Now, this file is a list of all of the employees at 99 Mattresses. Notice that the names in this tab are in a last name, comma, space, first name format. We're going to use this list of names as the example behind your lesson on text functions. In the next few pages, you're going to write a formula in one cell that will turn these names from a last name, comma, space, first name format to a first name, space, last name format. To accomplish this, you're going to write a series of formulas using only text functions to break apart the first and last names, and then write a formula to put it all back together again. Now, we will do better than all the king's horses and all the king's men, for those of you who are familiar with Mother Goose. The trick is to write one formula that will accomplish all of this. Now, we're going to use some of the text functions listed at the beginning of this chapter, as well as our experience in working with concatenating strings you learned in Chapter 6 to accomplish all of this. But first, let's go over each function. Okay, let's talk about the find and search functions. These are the first few text functions that we're going to use, find and search. The find function finds a text string within another text string and returns the number of the starting position of the find text argument. You use the search function to find one text string within another, but unlike search, find is case sensitive and does not allow wildcard characters. There are basically three wildcard characters that you can use in Excel. Those are the question mark, the asterisk, and the tilde sign. Both the find and search functions have two required arguments and one optional argument. The first argument is the find text, or the text you want to find. The second argument is the within text, or the string in which you want to do the search, or the string that you want to search for. The optional argument is the start number argument. You use this optional argument when you don't want to start at the first character in the string. These functions return the number position of the text string that you're searching for. So in this next example, you're going to use the find function, although either function would work. So what we want to do in this next example, we want to find the position number of the comma in the cells that contain the employee's name. So over here in column B, all of the names in here contain a comma. And what we want to do is we want to find the position of that comma. Don't worry about why we're doing this right now. Just trust me, humor me for a few minutes, and follow along. So over here in cell E1, I'm going to type find, because that's the name of the function that we're going to use. And then in cell E2, we're going to type equals find, open parentheses. And then in cell E2, we're going to type equals find, open parentheses. What are we going to find? We're going to find the comma, so we're going to have to put that in quotes since it's not a number or a date. Find the comma in or within text B2. Close parentheses and enter. The result of this formula is 8, meaning that the comma in cell B2 is the 8th character from the left in the string Goodson, comma space, Vergetta. Now let's copy that formula to all of the cells below. And it looks like it's working just fine. You see that the comma in the next few cells is found in the 6th character, the 9th, the 8th, 5th, 4th, 10th, and so forth. This is a very simple function that returns a simple value, just one value. The left function returns the leftmost characters in a text string based on the number of characters you specify. This function has two arguments. First is the text that you want to extract the data from, and second is the number of characters that you want to extract, starting from the first character on the left. Let's go ahead and work an example. And in this case, we're going to extract the last name. So over here in cell F1, I'm going to type last name and enter. And in cell F2, I'm going to say equals left, open parentheses, and you see the screen tip over here that shows what values we're on, or what arguments you're on. Text, what text we want to find. We want to, or what text do we want to perform the left function on? That's over here in cell B2, so I'm going to click on cell B2, type a comma, and 7. Because the name Goodson has 7 characters in it. Close parentheses and enter. This formula tells Excel to return the left 7 characters in the text string in cell B2. The result is Goodson. In this manner, we can extract all of the last names in the names in column B. However, the last name will not always be 7 characters long, like we programmed into the function. Now, how can you calculate the length of the last name? Well, you think about it. We've already calculated where the comma is, and the last name will always end 1 character before the comma. So for Goodson Vergetta, the comma is the 8th character, so the last name should be at the comma, or the 8th place, less 1. Let's modify our formula to see if that works. So with your cursor on cell F2, I want you to take your mouse and select the number 7. And instead of number 7, we're going to say, give me whatever is in cell E2 minus 1. And enter. And now let's copy it down to all of the cells beneath it. That seems to work. All we're doing here is taking the number in column E less 1 to populate the number character argument in the left function. The right function operates in the same way as the left function, except it returns characters from the right. So in cell G1, let's click on cell G1 and type first name, enter. And then in cell G2, we're going to write the formula equals right, open parentheses, B2, because that's the cell that we're trying to perform the right function on, comma, 8, close parentheses. And we see the first name for Jetta. Again, hard coding the 8 in this formula will work for the first name, and it will work for all first names that have 8 characters in it, but it won't work for all of the names. In this case, we could use a nested left-right function to extract the correct value, but it's a lot easier to use the mid function. Now, the mid function operates in the same manner as the left and right functions with one additional argument. It requires you to tell the formula which characters to start on. So in cell G2, I'm going to delete my right function. Let's click over here and we're going to type equals mid open parentheses. Let's read the screen tip. The screen tip says text. What text are we going to perform the mid function on? It's going to be the cell B2. So I'll click on B2, type a comma, go to the next argument. Start number. What number do we want to start at? Well, in Goodson space Virginia, Goodson has 7 characters in it. The comma is the 8th. The space after the comma is the 9th. So we really want to start on the 10th. So I'm going to type 10, comma, and there are 8 characters in Virgetta. So we'll just type 8, close parentheses, and enter. Reviewing this formula tells Excel to return the 8 rightmost characters starting from the 10th character from the left. When we analyze all of the names, there are 2 variables that we need to calculate. First, the character to start on, and second, how many characters are in the first name. Since we've already calculated the position of the comma, we know that the beginning character of the first name is always going to be at the comma plus 2. You've got to remember to include the space after the comma as a character because it is a character. Now, many times I'll put 100 as the number of characters in the first name because I don't know anybody who has a first name that has more than 100 characters in it. This way, Excel will always turn all of the characters in the first name. Let's go ahead and try that. So in our formula, the first thing that we're going to do is take out the 10. We don't want to do 10. We want to say, give us whatever is in cell E2 plus 2. And instead of the number 8, we want to be sure to capture all of the first names. So we'll just type 100 and enter. Now, when you type 100, don't worry about it adding additional spaces because that's not going to happen. This formula doesn't allow that. So you're not going to accidentally add spaces if you put 100 characters in there. All right, so let's go ahead and copy that puppy all the way down to all of the cells below it, and we scan up and down just to make absolutely sure that it was working right. Megan, Elvin, Ernestine, yeah, it looks like everybody is working just fine. Now, since you already know how to concatenate cells, all you have to do is write a formula in cell H2 to put the first name and the last name together. So we'll click, let's give ourselves a little space there. We're going to click on cell H1 and type full name, enter. And then we're going to type a very simple function, equals, give me whatever is in cell G2, type the ampersand, quote, space, quote, ampersand, and then give me whatever is in cell 8 or F2. And enter. Let's copy that formula all the way down and gives ourselves a little bit more space over there. Looks like we're finished, doesn't it? But remember, that wasn't your assignment. Your assignment was to calculate everything in one cell. So far, we've had to use 4 columns to come up with the full name. To put it all into one cell, all you have to do is some copying and pasting. So I want you to pay attention to this. Watch this. If you look over here at your formula in cell H2, all it's doing is concatenating cells G2 and F2. But when you think about it, the formulas that are in G2, F2, and even E2, all they are formulas. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to click on cell G2, and with your cursor, go ahead and select the formula, the mid formula with your cursor without the equal sign. And then over here, we're going to copy, click the copy button, and then click escape on your keyboard. That copies that function or that formula into memory. Now you come over to cell H2 and find your G2 reference. And with your formula or with your mouse, select the G2 reference in that formula, and then we're going to paste that formula on top of cell G2 or replace cell G2 with that formula and enter. So all we did here was to put the formula in cell G2 into memory and pasted it onto the G2 reference within the cell or within the formula that's in the cell H2. Now let's do the same for cell F2. So I'm going to, with my mouse, I'm going to click over here on F2. With my cursor, I'm going to select the formula. We can either click the copy button over there, or I like to use Control C on my keyboard. So I'll type Control C and escape. That formula is now in memory. I come over here to my formula in cell H2, find my F2 reference, select that, press Control V, and enter. Now, the formula in cell H2 is looking like it's a really, really serious formula, but you know something? We're not done yet. If you think about it, the formulas inside the formula, we've got two E2 references. There's one E2 reference that we had to use in the first name and another E2 reference which references the comma over there in the last name. So now the last piece of this, or one of the last pieces, is to click on cell E2, highlight the formula again without the equal sign. I'm going to copy that and escape. That formula is now in memory. I'm going to come back over here to my formula, or to my formula in cell H2, find my first E2 reference, paste that formula on top of it, find my second E2 reference and paste that formula again on top of that, and enter. Now that looks like a really, really serious formula there. Now with your cursor, I want you to highlight columns E, F, and G because we don't need them anymore. All of that logic is over here in the function in cell F2. So we're going to go ahead and delete those. And we see that we get reference errors because we haven't copied it down yet. So now I'm going to copy, or I'm going to select cell E2 that has the full formula, double click that all the way down, and now look at that. That is one cool formula. Review questions. It's now time to complete the review questions. Log on to www.excelceo.com with your email address and password. Click on the Excel 2013 Review Questions, Chapter 7, Section 1 of 2 option, and complete the review questions. All right, let's continue our discussion by using the upper, lower, and proper functions. There is another thing that we can do to clean up the formula just a little bit more. I want you to look down here at cell E25. The first name, Blair, is all in caps, whereas all of the other names are in upper and lowercase. Excel has functions to change the text to uppercase, lowercase, or proper case. The proper case is where the first letter of each word is capitalized and the remaining letters are in lowercase. Let's use each one of these functions just to show you how it works. So let's click on cell E2 up here. And the first thing that we're going to do is to change everything into uppercase. And to do that, we're going to use the upper function. So in your formula bar, right after the equal sign, we're going to type the word upper. open parentheses. We'll go all the way over here to the end and type a closing parenthesis and enter to enclose the entire formula with the upper function. And as you can see, Vergetta Goodson now appears all in caps. So now in the formula in cell E2, let's go ahead and select the upper function, and we're going to type lower instead. And as you can see, now the name Vergetta Goodson is all in lowercase. Now this is the cool one, the proper case. There's a lot of people who don't know about this. Now in the formula, I want you to replace lower with the word proper and enter. And let's copy that formula all the way down. You come over here and you look at Blair, and Blair is appearing in a proper case. The proper function capitalizes the first letter in its text string, and all of the remaining letters are in lowercase. Now, let me just show you this one tip over here. I'm going to type a couple of names over here. We're going to type them all in caps. I'm going to say Jim McGowan and Joe Smith III. All right. If we were to use the proper function on those names, watch what it does here. We're going to copy that down. So the function is doing exactly what you told it to. The proper function capitalizes the first letter, and all the remaining letters are in lowercase. So when you have a name like McGowan, the G in McGowan or McDonald or O'Leary or something like that, the first letter in the text string is capitalized and all the remaining ones are lowercase. Joe Smith III, okay, over here, that one is the third should be all in capital letters. So the proper function is not perfect, but it will get you most of the way there. All right, let's just go ahead and delete all of that. I really do counsel you to work this example as many times as it's necessary to lock it into your memory. You are going to find a whole lot of uses for this formula in your everyday work. All right, next let's talk about the length and trim functions. These functions are extremely useful when analyzing data that may not quite be in the right format. Sometimes when data is copied or imported from one database to another, the numbers are copied over as text strings and text strings are copied over as numbers. This sometimes happens when databases are not programmed correctly, and sometimes it can add characters to the data that are almost invisible to the user. So to prove this example, we're going to use the Stores tab over here. So let me click over here on the Stores tab. Now this tab over here is a listing of all the stores that 90 Night Mattresses owns. It was copied directly from a SQL Server database and it hasn't been cleaned up yet. So let's suppose we want to create a formula in one cell that concatenates the address, city, and state. So over here on cell, let's click on cell I1 and we're going to type location. Let's go ahead and format cell I1 just like the other ones, and we're going to use our format painter icon to do that. So in cell I2, I want you to click, or I want you to input the following formula. Equals, give me whatever's in cell D2, ampersand, quote, comma, space, quote, ampersand. Then give me the city, which is in cell E2. So click on E2, ampersand, quote, comma, space, quote, ampersand, and then give me the state, which is in cell F2, and enter. All right, so this formula puts in the address, city, and state into one cell separated by commas. After you type the formula and hit enter, you see that there's a long string of spaces after the address. It also appears that there's some spaces before the address, as the address appears to be indented a little bit from the left. This adding of spaces happens frequently when data is copied from a database into Excel. Let's play around with the address field just to see what's there. So for this exercise, I want you to click on cell J2 right over here, which is a blank cell. In fact, what we're going to do, we're going to increase that the size of that cell right over there, or increase the size of the column. And in cell J2, I want you to type equals LEN, which stands for length, open parentheses, and then click on cell D2, close parentheses, and enter. The length function counts the number of characters in the text string in cell D2, which is the address. The string 1082 Glencourt has only 16 characters in it, including the two spaces in between the words. So the result of the formula should be 16, but we see that the length function returned 30. This indicates that there's some additional spaces before, after, and or between words in the address. You can solve the issue by including the address with a trim function. The trim function removes all spaces from the text string, all spaces at the beginning of the text string, all spaces at the end of the text string, and all spaces in between words down to one space within the text string. So we're going to delete that function right over there. We know where the problem is. And now let's click on cell I2, the formula that we've got in cell I2. And the first cell over here, the D2 reference, we're going to trim that. So I'm going to click just to the right of the equals sign, and we'll type trim, open parentheses, and then go to the end of that, of cell D2, close with our closing parenthesis, and enter. And now let's copy that address all the way down for everybody. And now it looks like the concatenation of the address, city, and state appears correct. Another very useful function is the value function. This function turns numbers that are shown as text into numbers. For example, sometimes US zip codes contains 5 characters and sometimes 10 digits with a 5 and 4-digit code separated by a dash. With the 5-digit code and a dash, then the 4-digit code. In this example, when the data was copied over from the database, Excel recognized the 5-digit code as numbers and the 10-digit code as text, as you can't have a dash character within a number. So let's suppose that we really don't care about the 4-digit extension. All we really want is the 5-digit zip code formatted as a number. So in cell J1, let's type the word zip, and usually that's all in caps. Let's go ahead and format that like this cell over here. So we'll go ahead and format that using the format painter icon. And in cell J2, let's type the formula equals, give me the left G2, comma 5. So the left 5 characters in cell G2. Close with our closing parenthesis and enter. Now, when you use a text function like left, Excel turns the result into a text string. To make that text string a number, you must first be sure that there are only numbers in the text string. Then you can use the value function. So now what I want to do is I want to edit the, or I want you to do is to edit the formula over here in cell J2 to say value, open parentheses, and then let's go all the way to the end of our formula there, close with our closing parenthesis, and enter. And copy it down for all the cells. You can usually tell if a number is formatted as text or as a number by first seeing if the number is left or right justified. A left justified number usually indicates that it's text. Second, if you can add the numbers. If you can't add them, they're formatted as text. If you can add them, they're formatted as numbers. Or number 3, if the numbers contain a leading zeros. Leading zero indicates that it's a text field. Now, here's another trick I want to show you. A quick and dirty way to turn a text string containing only numbers into a number format is just to add 0 to the end of the formula. Actually, any mathematical calculation would work. You don't have to add 0. You can multiply it times 1 or something like this. So in this example, what we would do, in fact, let's go ahead and take out, in fact, I'm going to type Control Z a couple of times to undo what we just did. So in this example, what we would do is we would have our left function over there, and then over here at the end, we would just say plus 0. And you copy that formula down. And guess what? It works just as well as the value function. But don't tell this to your computer programmers, because being the purists that they are going to tell you that I'm crazy, but guess what? It works. Go ahead and try it. All right, let's go ahead and save that file. Now let's talk about flash fill. Flash fill is a feature new to Excel 2013, which quickly allows you to organize and reorganize data based on the text pattern Excel detects from the cell contents in contiguous columns in your spreadsheet. That's a lot of words. Let's go ahead and talk about it. In other words, the data that you're establishing the pattern in must be touching the cells immediately to the left. Flash fill can break data apart, put it back together again in very sophisticated ways, even to the point of replacing many of the functions you learned earlier in this chapter. Now, rest assured that the functions that you've learned and the formula writing abilities are for good reason. Flash fill detects patterns, but you do have the ability to override them by clicking the escape button. Since flash fill is set up to enhance your Excel experience, let's see how it works. So now in cell K2, I'm going to click on cell K2, and we need to give our spells a little bit more space over here. We're going to type the contents of cell I2 followed by a comma, then the first 5 digits of the zip code in cell G2. So let's start typing. So I'm going to type 1082 space GLYNN court. All right, let's go ahead and finish up this chapter by talking about flash fill. Flash fill is a feature new to Excel 2013, which allows you to quickly organize and reorganize data based on text patterns Excel detects from the cell content in contiguous columns in your spreadsheet. In other words, the data that you're establishing the pattern in must be touching cells immediately to the left. Flash fill can break apart data and put it back together in a very sophisticated way, even to the point of replacing many of the functions that you've already learned about in this chapter. Rest assured, you've learned those functions and formula writing abilities for good reason. Flash fill detects patterns, but you do have to have the ability to override them by clicking escape. Since flash fill is set up to enhance your Excel experience, let's see how it works. So what I want you to do now is take your cursor and click on cell K2. And then what you're going to do is you're going to type exactly what you see over here in cell I2, then type a comma at the end and type in the zip code. So let's go ahead and type that very first location at 102 Glen Court. All right, now that we've typed the address, the location, followed by the zip code in cell K2, we're going to do the same thing over here on cell K3, which is to type the 922 Allen Boulevard. Now watch what happens here. Now, as soon as you start typing, you're going to see the contents of cell K3 expand to match cell I3 plus the zip code from cell G3, and ghost text will appear in the remainder of the contiguous cells in column K. At this point, you can either click Enter to accept the predicted pattern or Escape to continue on your own. So let's go ahead and click Enter. See how cool it works? It takes everything that it can recognize over in columns I and J and automatically put them in column K. That is too cool. Now, if you find flash fill not to be working when you're typing the pattern specified, your flash fill may be disabled. To correct this, click on the File tab, click on the options at the very bottom left-hand corner of the dialog box, and that's going to open the Excel Options dialog box. Click on the Advanced tab and make sure the Automatically Flash Fill checkbox is checked. So we're going to go ahead and click Escape at this point to halt the flash fill functionality. Now you can click on any cell. In fact, let's just go ahead and click on any cell over here in column K, and you'll see that all of the references are hard-coded into the cells rather than writing as formulas. While flash fill is very powerful and can extract data in some very creative ways, such as identifying Excel domain names and an email address, things like that, it's limited to joining cells to the adjoining cells on the left of the same spreadsheet to work. Once the values are established, you cannot update the way you would a formula any more than you could than any other hard-coded values. So for this reason, I recommend that you learn to master formula writing and the rest of the concepts that I teach in this course so you can be in control of your data and able to make updates very quickly. All right, so let's just go ahead and close that file without saving it. Yeah, we don't need to save it. We're fine there. In this chapter, you learned about some of the most common functions, and we explored in depth the various types of text functions. You split apart a name in a last name, comma space, first name format using the find, left, and mid functions. You also worked an example using the right function. You concatenated the first name and last name fields into one very impressive formula. You saw how to change case sensitivity of text by working examples using upper, lower, and proper functions. You learned how to use the length function, the len function, to find out how many characters are in a cell. You used the trim function to take out spaces before and after a text string and within the text string down to one space. You also learned how to use the value function to turn number formatted as text into a real number. Finally, you used flash fill, a new feature in Excel 2013, to give you another data input weapon in your arsenal. And now it's time for the review questions. Review questions. It's now time to complete the review questions. Log on to www.excelceo.com with your email address and password. Click on the Excel 2013 Review Questions, Chapter 7, Section 2 of 2 option, and complete the review questions. The chapter exam. To take the examination for this chapter, you must have successfully completed the examination for the previous chapter and all of the review questions within this chapter. After you do all of that, then you can go to www.excelceo.com, click on the sign in, log in, and take the exam. Make sure that you take the exam on the same computer on which you completed the sample files, as some of the questions on the exam may refer to some of the completed examples.